Welcome to Sib Spot. Today's Reddit stories are from MaliciousCompliance. Story 1 is by Sick Sister-in-Law 1998. Take notes on everything you say in the meeting. Okay, but it will get you fired. So this happened a few years ago, and I will be vague since I'm still not sure if the dust is fully settled from this fiasco yet. At my former company, I was the secretary for a small improvement team that would meet monthly to discuss issues within the company and brainstorm ways to fix them. Something you need to know about me is that I was given this role because people know I'm meticulous at keeping records due to HR-related issues I had at previous places of employment. I don't think my boss realized that this careful record-keeping applied to her as well, especially when she appointed me to be secretary of this little committee, but I digressed. I was a model employee, Reed, award-winning, and went above and beyond what was asked, as were many others in my department, but we were still having customer complaints and dealt with regular safety issues due to the company at large and through no fault of our own. When we brought these concerns to our boss's attention, emails were left unread, and during in-person exchanges we were called whiny, needy, and were told that we needed to just deal with it. Whatever the issue, from items being stolen by customers to people being unhappy with the procedures the boss had set down for us to follow, it was always made to somehow be our fault. When we sought support from other departments, we were met with cold indifference, since the boss was great to them, and we must be exaggerating the things she said to us. Well, during an improvement meeting at the end of the fiscal year, it all came to a head. Myself and a couple of my team members dug our heels in and were insistent about the unresolved issues the boss refused to acknowledge, and she finally went off on us. She told us everyone was incompetent, didn't deserve our jobs, and maybe customers would like us more if we were more likable. When people pressed her on safety issues, she continued to reiterate that we would just have to deal with it, that if someone was going to die, they already would have. Right? I, as the secretary, did my duty and took notes of all that happened over the course of that meeting. I usually did bullet points, but that night I was feeling a bit more thorough. So I wrote down words. Every word that was said, every hateful comment, denial of accountability, and idle threat was recorded in black and white. Now, a second part of my job was to distribute the notes from the improvement meeting to the rest of the company. So come the next morning, I ran about 100 copies of the transcript of the meeting and hand-delivered them to every single department in the building, and things blew up. People from other departments who had attended the meeting were able to verify that everything I had typed up had really been said, and folks were mad, threatening to quit, refusing to do their normal duties, browsing Indeed during work, etc. My boss's boss, who worked at the headquarters, so I didn't get the opportunity to hand her a copy, got wind of these meeting minutes only a few hours after I handed them out and had an hour-long off-the-record conversation with me about all the safety issues I had documented, all the concerns I had submitted to management in writing, and all the records I had regarding my boss's inaction. She was very grateful for the 100 pages of documentation I sent over and thanked me for my time. The day after I unleashed Pandora's box, I put in my 2 weeks' notice, took a new job, and pieced out to greener pastures. At first, it seemed like things were calming down after I left, but the following year, the company did not renew my boss's contract. I still feel a bit bad because I wasn't trying to get her fired or ruin her life. I was just desperate for some accountability thrown her way to create some positive change in the company. But at the end of the day, I just did what she had asked me to do. An absolute ton of companies out there have real safety concerns, issues that they just say, oh, ignore it until somebody gets really seriously hurt or killed, and then they start to make some changes. But every time there's an unresolved safety concern for years and years, somebody gets hurt or killed, and then they say, oh yeah, we've known about these concerns for like 20 years and nothing was ever done. It's a little bit like working in an industry with a giant piano on a rope hanging over your head, just waiting for it to fall. Our next story today is by Pharma Tech Chick. You get what you asked for. So I have been working for this huge pharmaceutical manufacturing company for 5 years and have never had a write-up. In July, they changed the attendance policy. Our managers and supervisors came around and apologized for relaying the incorrect information about the new leave policy. At the end of August, early September, everything that could go wrong went wrong. I got into an accident and didn't have a car around the last week of August. First week of September, my pipes under my house broke and I had no water for 2 days. Then, at the end of September, I was at work and got a migraine so bad I got physically sick and asked permission to leave work early, which is an excused absence, otherwise I'd be getting wrote up for job abandonment. Normally, I just suffer through my migraines first. With the new policy, although we get sick time, it's considered unexcused if we take it regardless of why we took it. Second, our sick policy states that if you are sick, you have to leave immediately. We make intravenous meds. So this all happened in September. I walk into the first week of November to a write-up. I asked my boss, who literally just started the job 30 days before, what it was for, and he said HR told him to give it to me. So I asked my manager, and she says it's because my absences are considered a pattern. I also asked what the statute of limitations was because October I didn't miss a single day of work, but I got wrote up in November for August. Anyways, I ask how an emergency can be patterns. She has no answer. I set up a meeting with HR and she cancels on me on my off day. I'm not salary, I don't check my email on off days. I only work 14 or 15 days a month. Keep in mind I had to rearrange my schedule to even make the meeting. I ask for another meeting and that she call or text so that I can get it whether or not I work that day. And HR sets a date, then cancels it almost immediately again. At this point, I'm pissed because I literally sent an email with 8 questions about the new policy I needed clarified, but HR refused to reply in an email. So I contacted my doctor and put down every current health issue I'm dealing with and get granted 5 days a month for intermittent leave for the next year. Now, instead of my working 14 or 15 days a month, I only work 9 or 10 because HR wanted to be jerks. They got what they asked for. So, does your doctor know that you only work 14 or 15 days a month? I don't know why they would give you 5 leave days a month at this point, but maybe you've got some real health concerns that you don't want to vent or talk about, and they're probably quite hard to go to work with. And isn't it also true? When one thing goes wrong, they say it usually happens in threes, but it looks like you had more than 3 bad things happen to you in September. When it rains, it pours, right? Down in the comments by Shag377, how typical there is a failure to respond to email. Management rule number 1, never put in writing if it's against your favor. Under that by ACAM547. A job I had in the last decade followed this rule, and that's how they learned that we live in a one-party consent state. Quote, we never said that, quote. Really, let me send you the file. It's at 3 minutes and 27 seconds in. Quote, you can be fired for recording meetings, end quote. Is that in the employee handbook? Quote, no, quote. Then thanks for stating that loudly, and for the record, I'm sure if it suddenly becomes policy and you act on it, it would be interesting to my lawyer. Story 3 today is by An Idea Man. Not Ideal Man, An Idea Man. Won't pay me my paid time off? Well, can I take PTO and work? At my last job, I'd given them notice, and I had assumed they'd cut me a check for the 55 hours of the paid time off I had left over. But no, they said I would lose it if I didn't use it. So I went ahead and used my PTO for the last 55 hours I was scheduled to work because I wasn't about to waste that. But then I remembered a time a few weeks back. I had taken PTO, but then I had worked for about 30 minutes into my PTO. I ended up earning time and a half with my PTO plus 30 minutes of extra work. I enjoyed my coworkers. I wouldn't mind working. So I sent an email to my manager. Hey, Mark. I know we're a bit understaffed and I took PTO already, but I wouldn't mind working anyway. Is that okay to work? Mark responds, yes, we'd be happy to have you. My hourly rate was $25 at that point. Time and a half put me at $37.50, which I was fine with earning. So come my second hour of Thursday, I will be earning time and a half. So I worked, had fun. Come Monday after my last day, my old boss calls me and says, did you work 135 hours last pay period? No, I worked 80 hours and I used 55 hours of PTO. 'Cause, your overtime pay put us over budget. I said, yeah, that sucks. You did say I was good to work despite the fact that I had scheduled PTO, right? Him, I did. Yeah, thanks. He starts laughing. Yes, I got paid. Company now pays PTO when you quit because of me. In the end, they paid me $2,062 in overtime, plus the 80 hours I worked earned me $2,000. So typically 80 hours of work would cost them $2,000, but because they wouldn't pay me out my PTO, they ended up paying double, when they could have just cut me a check for $1,375 and saved $700. Essentially, in their effort to rip me off my benefit, I made them pay $700 for their greed. I made sure to get permission to come to work despite the fact that I had already scheduled my PTO. FYI, previously in another interaction I was told once PTO was approved, it can't be canceled. Edit: in my state, not paying out for PTO is perfectly legal and fine. Edit 2. In my company, PTO is treated in terms of pay the same as hours worked. So in a bi-weekly pay period, I'm scheduled to work 80 hours, 40 per week. I noticed if overtime pay went above 40 hours, I still got paid time and a half. So here's the math. I was supposed to work 80 hours. I had 55 hours of PTO to use. So I took all of that, which means I was going to work 25 hours and take off 55 hours. Now, instead of taking those 55 hours, I worked them. But I was still using PTO, so I got my $25 for my 80 hours, and then I got $37.5 per hour for my 55 hours. This resulted in a gross pay of $4,062. Had the company simply wrote me a check for my PTO, that would have been $1,375 plus my 80 hours would have been $2,000, for a total of $3,375. So the company basically paid me $700 more than they could have because they were trying to be greedy. It's so awful for them to just assume you would be donating your time to them. You have this PTO, just because you don't use it doesn't mean you shouldn't get paid for it at the very end. Here's your paid time off. Thank you for not leaving us understaffed. That's how it should be. That's how it should be. Otherwise, you're basically donating money to them. You're donating your time. Time is money, right? Down in the comments by Zorg Galacticus. Just left my last job. They paid out my PTO, but they treated it like a normal check and took out taxes, insurance, 401k, Social Security, etc. They already took all of that out of my paycheck for the week. They took almost half of my PTO. Only thing that was supposed to come out of it was taxes. I threatened to get a lawyer. They said, go ahead. Nothing you can do. Soon as the lawyer's office sent them a letter, I got a deposit for more than what they owed me. The lawyer didn't even charge me for writing the letter. Never be afraid to call their bluff. Our stories for today have come to a close. If you enjoy this content, please click like or subscribe or leave a comment below. Each of these things helps my channel and the YouTube algorithm to reach more people. Until we meet again, have a cozy day.